Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. And in today's video we are going to discuss a very interesting chapter, that is how do organisms reproduce. Okay, I said this is a very interesting chapter because this chapter is all about us, it's all about you, it's all about me. How did we form? Okay, it's about the process of reproduction. And in today's video we will be focusing on the introductory part of this chapter and asexual mode of reproduction. Okay, so I will try to make the video as short as possible, so I want all of you to watch this video very carefully. Okay, so learning objectives for today's class are uh, at the end of this video you should be able to define the term reproduction, explain its importance. Okay, why is reproduction important for us, and mention different types of asexual reproduction with examples. Okay, so these are the learning objectives for today's class. Now let's try to understand the concept of reproduction, its significance and types. Okay, so in the previous chapters we have studied those life processes which help an organisms to keep alive, right? So now, as you know that all the living organisms grow old with time and ultimately die, right? In fact, every living organism remains alive on this earth for a limited period of time and then dies. So new organisms have to be produced in place of those who die. Okay, and this replacement is done by the process of reproduction. So the production of new organisms from the existing organisms of the same species is known as reproduction. Okay, so from this term itself you'll understand reproduction. Okay, so to produce, again, production means to produce, re means again. Okay, to produce again. And one thing you have to note here is the organisms will be produced from the existing organisms of the same species. You need to note down this point, same species. Okay, two different species cannot reproduce. If this process has to be done, the organisms should be of or from same species. Okay, so significance. The first significance of reproduction is it ensures continuity of life on earth. Now it means the reproduction process will help the organisms to live on this earth. Okay, the life will be continued. Okay, so we can take an example of human beings. Okay, so human beings reproduce by giving birth to babies. Okay, so these babies grow and ultimately become adults. So when the old parents die, their children keep living on this earth, right? And again later these children will reproduce by giving birth to more babies, and this process goes on and on, right? Thus, reproduction by a human being ensures that the human species will continue to exist on this earth for all the time to come. Similarly, it happens with all kind of organisms. Okay. So next is it ensures the rise of population, thus preserving the species on earth. Okay. So, for example, we can say human beings always produce human babies, right? Cat always produce kittens, and sunflower seeds always produce sunflower plants. If, however, some species of the living organisms cannot reproduce due to certain reasons, then the organisms of this species will gradually die out and disappear from this earth one day. So basically what's happening, this reproduction process is preserving the species, okay, certain species on this earth. Okay, now as we know, there are different kinds of living organisms on this earth, and different organisms, they have different types of processes. The process of nutrition are different, the process of digestions are different. Okay, the process of digestions are different. Similarly, the process of reproduction is also different in different kinds of organisms. But there is broad category of this reproduction. All these organisms, they reproduce by these two one of the two kinds or mode of reproduction, that is asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Okay, so every living organism on this earth will reproduce either by asexual way or sexual way of reproduction. Some organisms are there which can use both kind of reproduction as well. So asexual reproduction means it's a process where only a single parent is involved and no gamete formation takes place. So in asexual means without sex. Okay, there is no involvement of sex cells or gamete, and single parent can produce lots of progenies or offspring. Whereas sexual reproduction is the process where two parents are involved, that is male parent and female parent. Okay, and gamete formation takes place, so sex cells are involved. Okay, so these are the difference between asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Now let's see the asexual mode of reproduction in detail. Okay, so you need to remember 2 points, okay, for this asexual reproduction. One is involvement of single parent, only one parent is involved, and no involvement of sex cells. So sex cells or gametes are not involved at all. Okay, so the question may come, then how will asexual reproduction take place? Okay, so what happens in asexual reproduction? A part of the parent organism separates off and grows into a new organism. Okay, so the whole organism, you can see in this diagram, this is an organism, single celled organism. Okay, and this single celled organism is separating off. Okay, they are separating, and its uh, part will grow into new individual or new organism. So this is how asexual reproduction take place. And basically most of the unicellular organism, they reproduce through this mode or this method. Okay, so again, there are various types of asexual reproduction. Those are fission, budding, regeneration, fragmentation, spore formation, and vegetative propagation. The first one is fission. Fission means division or to split off. So in this mode of reproduction, the parent cell will divide or split off into two or more cells. Okay, if two cells are formed at the end of the division, then it is called as binary fission. Binary means two. Okay, and if many cells are formed, if more than two cells are formed at the end of the division, then it is called as multiple fission. So this is binary fission in amoeba and multiple fission in plasmodium. So in multiple fission, what happens? This is a single cell organism, that is plasmodium. So during unfavorable condition, a protective layer is formed. Okay, a protective layer is formed which is called a cyst, and inside the cyst, this nucleus will divide into many nuclei. Okay, now each nucleus will accumulate little bit of cytoplasm and form cell within the cyst. After the cell is formed within the cyst, this cyst will break, and these daughter cells are released, and each cell will develop into a new organism. Okay, this is how multiple fission is done. So this is binary fission in amoeba. So amoeba is reproduced through binary fission. So you can see parent cell, inside the parent cell there you can see nucleus, and first nucleus will divide. Okay, nucleus will divide into two, and after nucleus is divided, cytoplasm will divide. Okay, after cytoplasm is divided, two daughter cells are formed, and each cell will develop into new amoeba. Now division of nucleus is called as karyokinesis, you can see here, and the division of cytoplasm is called as cytokinesis. You can pause the video and go through this notes. And the next type of asexual reproduction is budding. So in this process, what happens? A new organism is formed on the parent organism. You can see small outgrowth. Okay, small outgrowth is formed or grown in a parent organism, and this outgrowth, which is called as bud, will grow, mature, and after fully matured, it will detach out from the parent body, and this bud will grow into new organism. So examples are hydra and yeast. Okay, so In yeast, you can see two different types of budding. In one case, what happens, bud will form on the parent body, and this bud will uh, detach out from the parent body, and again that bud will grow again. The same process will continue. Later, another case, what happens, bud keeps on piling up. Okay, so this is a parent body, and one bud is formed on parent body. So on top of that bud, another bud is formed. So this way, chain of buds are formed. Okay, so next is fragmentation and regeneration. So I have brought these two different types of asexual reproduction together because those are similar type of reproduction, similar type. Okay, but they are different. Obviously they are different, but somehow they are similar. Now in both the cases, what happens, some part of the organism are fragmented, okay, are cut off, and from that part new organism is formed. But the difference is, in fragmentation, each fragmented part of the organism will form new organism. Okay, new organisms are formed from each fragmented part. But in case of regeneration, only some fragmented part has ability to develop into new organism. For example, you can see regeneration in a lizard. So what happens? So lizard, if the tail is cut, okay, from the body new tail is formed, but from the tail new body is not formed. Okay, so this is the difference between fragmentation and regeneration. In fragmentation, see, you can see the fragmentation in hydra. So this is head part, middle part, and the base part. So from each part new organisms are being formed. Okay, so these are the difference. As I said, these two mode of asexual reproductions are similar. So how is it similar? Okay, so sometimes in regeneration also, each fragmented part can develop into new organism. Okay, you can see here example, regeneration in planaria. So in planaria, okay, if the head part, middle part, tail part, if this planaria is fragmented into three different parts, okay, three different parts, so from each different part new organism is produced. So in this figure you can see two different parts, okay, head and tail. So from head, oh, body is also there. So from head also new organism is formed. From the body part, middle part is also new organism is formed, and from the tail part is also new organism is formed. Okay. So now you can say, in regeneration, each fragmented part may or may not develop into new organism. Okay. But in fragmentation, each fragmented part will develop into new organism. So you can see the example of fragmentation in Spirogyra. This is Spirogyra. It has fragmented into three different parts, and from each part new Spirogyra is formed. Okay, so you can go through the more differences between fragmentation and regeneration. Okay, so next is spore formation. So in this process, spores are formed. These spores are now tiny structures, which are also called as reproductive units. Okay, which looks like pollen grains, and but these are smaller than pollen grains also. And these spores are formed within a sac or a case called a sporangium. Okay, once spores are matured, this sporangium will burst, and these spores are released out in the air, and it lands in the ground. Okay, when it gets moisture and moist soil, then it will germinate and produce into new plants. Okay, so each spore has ability to produce into new plants. So this is how spore formation takes place. So last type of asexual reproduction is vegetative propagation. So in this process, what happens? A new plant is produced from the vegetative parts of the plant. Now, if you remember, there are two different parts of the plant. One is vegetative and other is reproductive part. So flower is reproductive part of a plant, and the rest of the parts are called as vegetative parts. Okay. So when new plant is formed or produced from the vegetative parts of the plant, it is called as vegetative propagation. So now vegetative parts are roots, stems, leaves, and buds. And you can see here example. So eyes of the potatoes. So from each eye, okay, if you cut this part, then from that part new plant will grow. this leaves of bryophyllum. Okay, so from the margin of bryophyllum leaf, okay, new plantlets are developed, and from each plantlet new plant is formed. Okay, so basically this vegetative propagation is also of two different types, that is natural vegetative propagation and artificial vegetative propagation. Natural means which happens naturally, and artificial means the human has to do something. Okay, so these are some example of a natural vegetative propagation. So here you can see the other examples of natural vegetative propagation. Rhizome of ginger. Okay, so from each part, these are called as rhizome. From each part, new plant will grow. Bulbs of onion. So this onion bulb, you will see different type, many bulbs. Okay, and from each bulb, new plant will grow. So runner in strawberry plant, you can see some stem. Okay, which runs through the ground, and when that part uh, finds the soil, then new plant will grow from that part. So this is called as runner. Okay, so these are some example of natural vegetative propagation and artificial vegetative propagation. So there are three different types of artificial vegetative propagation, that is cutting, grafting and layering. So in cutting, what happens, you will cut certain part of the plant and you will plant in different place. Okay, from that cut part new plant will grow, that is cutting. And in grafting, you will join or combine two different plants and grow as a one plant. Okay, so you can see here two different structure. A part of the plant with roots is called as stalk, and the upper part of the plant without roots is called as scion. Okay, you will join this scion and stalk together, and two different plants will grow as a one plant. And this is one of the very interesting method of vegetative propagation, where you can grow two different types of fruits in a single plant. Okay, and the last one is layering. So layering means certain part of the plant or stem will grow. Okay, will run along the ground, and when that touches the ground, it will start producing roots and new bud and new stem, and new plant will grow from that buried part. So here you can see two different types of layering. One is called as tip layering, where tip of the stem is buried under the soil. Okay, and from this tip, okay, once these roots are formed, and again it will develop bud and new plant will grow. And in other case, what happens, those stems are manually buried under the soil. Okay, not the tip, but the middle part of the stem is buried under the soil, and once it is buried, roots start growing. Okay, and you can later cut this part and new plant will grow from that buried part. Okay, so these are the some examples of uh, artificial vegetative propagation. So you can go through this different types of artificial vegetative propagation also. Okay, so now I hope you are clear with these topics. Okay, in next video we will discuss about the sexual reproduction. Thank you very much.